Hello everybody and welcome to Woogie's Corner. My name is Doug Jack. I've been a musician and a mechanic pretty well my whole life. My friends, my family, they've been listening to me to tell stories about my daring do adventures and on the road and in the bush for years and years, and now the time has come. It's your turn. Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to welcome myself back because I've been working for the last couple months, and I've been up running a road grader up in the bush and heavy snow country in the McGregor area. Anyway, I'm going to put some pictures on from that and let you know what I've been up to. But I'm back, and we got some great stories for you. And right now, today, we're going to go and back to the last episode. I think it was episode 3. And we had left Reno, Nevada with this caravan of a couple trucks and trailers and our old 51 Packard and some more trailers, and my mom, my dad, myself, brother and sister, and we came up through Seattle and through the Fraser Canyon, ended up in Prince George. But we dropped off the pavement just off the Cottonwood River Bridge onto the gravel. They hadn't paved it yet. And then we rolled on up through Quesnel and Williams Lake, and and we get near Prince George, and we come to the Prince George Airport, which is off to the left at that time. And on the right was the federal government experimental farm in Prince George, BC. Beautiful place. I'm sure some of the viewers will remember these beautiful buildings. I think it was about 6 or 8 of them, if I remember right. They were 3-story, gorgeous things, almost like a Victorian style, with porches and posts and all painted up, and the farms were just gorgeous. So then from there you kind of wound around and you ended up on Cessna Road. We went past the old Eastway Esso that used to be there, Eastway service station. Then finally down over the hill you went, wound around a couple switchbacks and ended up down with a power station. The Prince George Power Station was on your right. 4 big diesels in there for power. And then onto the CN Fraser River Rail Bridge. And we went across all 2,659 feet or whatever it was, and onto First Avenue. And now some of you viewers remind me, give me a comment. I don't remember whether Prince George or First Avenue in Prince George was paved at that time or not. It seems to me it wasn't, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Anyway, we're going to back up here for a minute, and we're going to talk about that bridge, the CN Rail Bridge. A lot of people don't realize this bridge is a national historic artifact. It's registered in the National Historical Archives. CN, for example, that owns it, they can't just go and do whatever they want with that bridge. They have a little bit of oversight from the federal government on that because it's a historical artifact. It was built by the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway, and around 1913-14, the first train was in 1915. It came across it, and that really was the beginning of Prince George as we know it. Before that it was kind of a village. It's the longest rail bridge in BC. It was designed by a guy named Joseph Durand. He was a French architect. But the main feature on this bridge was this, what they call the direct lift span. There was only 3 of these ever built, and this was designed by a guy named Joseph Strauss. That he went on to design the Golden Gate Bridge later on down to San Francisco. But this direct lift span that he designed, there was only 3 of them ever built that we know of, 2 in the United States and 1 in Canada. And there's 1 left in the United States and there's 1 in Canada, which is here in Prince George. Anyway, the steel work was by a Canadian company called Canadian Bridge Construction out of Ontario. The rest of the bridge was constructed by a Chicago construction company. They railroaded and barged all the cement, and in fact everything, in from the east. All came in from Pennsylvania and all the eastern areas. And they unloaded it at the end of rail at Taiwan Junction. It came down the river on barges to the Grand Canyon of the Fraser, and they ended up at Railroad Island. Now, some of you might go, Railroad Island, what's that? That's that little island that's just below the CN River Bridge, which we call Goat Island today. But back then, it was called Railroad Island. And it was fairly big. It actually extended up underneath the present-day bridge. And it had, docks for the stern wheelers and the barges to come into. They had a 600-man camp on that island. They had a cement mixing batch plant set up there, and a steam plant for making heat for everything. It was a big operation. And anyway, all that stuff came in from back east, and they worked on this bridge for a couple of years. It was a big deal. The original design for the bridge was supposed to be a 100-foot span over the Fraser side of the channel. You see, they divided it up. And back, they used to call the east bank the Fraser Channel, and the west side was the Chaco River Channel. But anyway, they designed this thing with the idea of building a 100-foot steel span with this direct lift span in it, over on the east side, on the Fraser Channel side. And that was going to be steel. The 12 spans that went to the west side were going to be wooden. I guess it would probably be similar to the old the Chaco River Bridge used to be. What they call a King Truss Bridge. And anyway, well, that was a great idea on paper until they built a temporary bridge in, I think it was in 1913 in the winter. And they were using that to work on these piers, and because they worked 24 hours a day, 7 days or 6 days a week, and for 2 or 3 years to build it was a big job. So anyway, they had built this temporary bridge across the Fraser there, and the spring thaw came in 1913 along with ice jams, and it took that bridge right out, that temporary bridge. It just destroyed it. Well, the engineers had to go back to the drawing board on that one. They said, well, I think we better rethink this, boys. We're going to have to go concrete and steel across that whole river, and no more of this wooden structure stuff. So that's what they did. $1.6 million it cost to build that bridge. Now, if you translate that into today's dollars, oh my goodness. I'm going to make a wild guess, somewhere around 20 to 30 million in today's money to build that, if you looked at it. Which, of course, in this day of big money and millions, now we're talking billions and trillions, so who knows anymore. But let's see. Okay, we talked about the Goat Island, we're at Railroad Island. We don't know where Goat Island name came from. So nobody seems to really know it. Apparently somebody had put some goats on it at one time, and I don't know. Anyway, here's a funny thing. It had a roadway on either side. That's what we first came in on, 1958 or 59. And and over the years, it was kind of an asphalt tiles that they put down or something, and it got so rough. Oh, you could hardly drive on this thing. I mean, it would just shake you right out of the cab. Well, every year they'd go out there and try to patch a little bit of it, but it was a battle, and nobody was winning on that one. So anyway, The big day came in May of, or maybe it was April of '71, and it was announced that the Queen, Elizabeth II, and the Duke of Edinburgh and her entourage was going to be visiting Prince George. Whoa, this is big news. Her yacht Britannia had docked in Victoria, and they were touring around in the Okanagan, and they were taking plane from there up to, I think, Williams Lake, and then Prince George and Prince Rupert. So the Highways Department, they just get their butt out there, boy, and they patched one whole side of that bridge. Just one lane on the one side. I mean, it was like you could fly across that thing. Because, picture this, her plane was going to land at the Prince George Airport, and she was going to come into town, and she was going to be there for maybe, what, 2 or 3 hours or whatever. Jump back in the limo and head right on back down on the same side of that bridge, too. And head on back up to the airport, and away they went. Well, this was all fine and dandy. Then it sort of dawned on everybody, wait a minute. We've been bouncing on that stupid bridge for years and busting our butts and our springs and everything else. The Queen shows up for 3 hours, the whole thing gets fixed on one side. What about the other side? Well, another months went by. And, oh man, I'm not sure whether Ben Meisner was around in those days, but I tell you, there was letters to the editor, there were people who were jumping up and down. So the Highways Department, they had to go and fix up the other side. And they finally took that asphalt right out of there, and they put steel grating down. And they used that thing right up till '87 when the Yellowhead Bridge was built. It was a fascinating thing, and you know what? I tell you what, it still is. If you ever get a chance to go down and just in low water, you can go out on the sandbars and go underneath that thing, preferably with a pair of binoculars, and you can look up there and look at the structure and how they built that, and just realize you're looking at a 115-year-old artifact here that's being used every day, located in good old Prince George, BC. There's only one in Canada like it. Okay, I think we'll stop that little story. Now, comments. I get some wonderful comments from people from the last 3 episodes I did. They were very favorable, very informative. Unfortunately, I don't have any names at my fingertips right at the moment, but I know a lady wanted to hear something about KRIS KRISTOFFERSON. Good choice. I got some great KRISTOFFERSON stories for you. Oh yeah, some real dandies. I heard comments about, they love the history part, what I'm doing about our family history and about history of some of the places around the area. And we're going to continue with that. Oh yeah. Somebody else mentioned back in a group that I used to play with, years ago, called Choco. And it was a country rock band. This had been from about 1972 to about 1976, called Choco. And it was Gary Felgard and Frank Penner, Ernie Pollock, Peter Padden, myself, and then a few others. And we were good. It was a good band. We were hard-hitting band. We worked 50 weeks a year. Yeah, we were rehearsed, and we had a contract with A&M Records for a while, which was Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brasses label. We did a lot of recording for that in Vancouver at Little Mountain Studios. It never really went anywhere, but I tell you, we had a good time. It was a good band, and so anyway, this lady wanted to hear anything about that, especially when we used to play the Web in Smithers. And we will be talking about that. I've got some great stories about us and other people and some celebrities. And yeah, we'll be getting to that. So I appreciate that comment. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. Now, speaking of comments, I'm going to go back to the Kristofferson thing. I always like to leave these episodes with a tune, with some kind of musical memory. So, with that thought in mind, speaking of Kristofferson, that little interlude right there probably told you what's coming up here. But anyway, in 1960, I'm going to guess around 66, he was living in L.A. He'd already written Bobby McGee, and I think Janis Joplin had done it, and he'd done some things. And anyway, he was living in L.A. and shopping around some tunes and, you know, trying to make a buck, playing here and there. And he was renting a room from Dottie West. Now, some of you might remember Dottie West. She was a fairly up-and-coming, well-known singer. She did some duet stuff with Kenny Rogers, and you know, she had some hits. Well, anyway, so Chris had written this song, and he got all excited. He goes upstairs one day. He said, "Dottie, sit down." He said, "I got this tune. You got to hear this." Okay, so she sits down and he plays her this song, and she sits there and listens to it. And, oh man, well, Dottie, what do you think of that? He said, "I'm going to give you that song. If you want that song, you get first shot. I'm giving it to you right now." She said, "Chris, I can't do that song." "Why? What do you mean you can't do it?" She said, "Well, it's too promiscuous. It's too suggestive. The lyrics are very, just too bold for my audience. They would never go for that." Really? So, off he goes down the street to the studio that he had been hanging out at or doing something with. And they, in turn, I can't remember all the maneuvers that went on, but anyway, they had an upcoming singer that they were trying to do something with. Her name was Sammy Smith. They called Sammy. She comes down, listens to the song, and, well, the rest is history. She recorded this thing. It goes to #1. And, well, I'll just do a bit of it. Take the ribbon from your hair, shake it loose, let it fall, lay it soft against my skin, like shadows on the wall. Come and lay down by my side till the early morning light. All I'm asking is your time. Come help me make it through the night. I don't care what's right or wrong. I don't try to understand. Let the devil take tomorrow, 'cause tonight I just need a friend. Help me make it through the night with the wonderful KRIS KRISTOFFERSON. You know, Dottie West, years later, she said she was on an interview show and somebody asked her about that. She said, you know something? She said, that was one of the biggest mistakes of my whole career. She said, not a day goes by I don't regret I should have grabbed that song off of Chris and just done it. I really wish I do. Anyway, so as you can see, even the rich and the famous, they make mistakes. They don't always call it right. Things are never as they seem. Anyway, let's see. Where are we? We're done. We're done for this episode of Woogie's Corner. And once again, people, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, give me comments, let me know what you think. Hey, and if you hear something I say that you know is wrong, historically wrong, and you know it, let me know, would you? Because I'm not a trained historian. I just sort of go from my memory, and well, I got a great memory, but sometimes it gets kind of short. Anyway, once again, from Doug Jack, Woogie's Corner, thank you, and we'll see you down the trail next time.